shocked to see it get through. Jiang has played this a ton over the course of the spring split. This has been his most played champion by far, and it definitely kind of stabilizes that top side. We've seen a lot of top laners really rely on it, but they're not just willing to go for the team fight ultimate. They want to go for some early aggression. They want to challenge Xiaofeng with that Lee Sin here for Junhao. I'm really excited to see what they want to pair that up with in the mid lane to try and create that havoc.
I was actually really excited to see if maybe it was going to be something a little bit different than the Lee Sin, but it is going to be a little bit of a hands check there as well. A lot of resources now being put in the jungle position for both sides. The Gwen lock-in, very nice to have. I mean, we can see it all the time in the meta. Is banned out a lot, but has been a very big staple for the top lane.
Yeah, I think the only real concern is do you want to get Zika out on the map, or do you want to keep him specifically trying to win in that side lane in terms of drafting around him? Clearly here they want to try and get him involved in everything, and as we see with the Corki coming in, they definitely have a little bit of an AP-heavy draft to start off here. That's something to note, I think, moving forward. I'm not sure if this is going to go to Haichao or LP just yet. Honestly, I would imagine that this would go to LP. I would think that the Corki would feel a little bit better in the bot lane, but we'll see what Ultra Prime wants to answer with here. The Gwen, to me, is a no-brainer for Zika, but it's going to be the Ryze locked in for Saber. Again, I really like the idea of just picking a mid laner to get out on the map, to try and open things up and create that havoc, create those skirmishes, and Ryze does that very well. You have a very dangerous topside fight if you want to go for some early grubs or anything like that. I'm really interested to see if they want to play more weak side bot now or where their bans are going to go, but I think the Ryze opens up this comp a lot for Ultra Prime.
I think it does as well. I wanted to see those kind of mobile mid laners coming through for both sides, honestly, to be able to get that movement towards the jungle. And right now, Ultra Prime, their solo lanes are very good. We'll see in the second phase what they want to kind of shore things up with. Already banning away the Tristana. On the other side for LNG, they're going to ban away that Varus, so heavy bot lane focus in the bans.
Yeah, I'm interested. The Tristana is still a flex ban. Overall, both of these players do play it as well, so I'm interested to see the Varus. I think you kind of have to take off the board. That champion is just a little bit too strong. To me, the most consistent AD carry in the game at the moment, so it makes sense to take that out. We'll see if a Kai'Sa ban ends up coming through. That's the other one that really stands out to me, but it's actually going to be Nautilus. I really like taking away engage options for Zhuo on the other side, but I think that there are too many up right now to really feel like you're pinching that pool. We've seen a lot of people find success with things like Leona and Alistar in the same way that they do with Nautilus. Obviously, you're going to have the chance to potentially pick one away there, but there's a lot still remaining, and it's the Nico ban coming out. You don't want any playmaking coming there.
I like it, the comfort bands, but it's insta-locking the Alistar, giving them a ton of wiggle room in their tankiness. See what they want to round it out with their final AD pick. They will have counter pick for that. Not something we see very often.
Yeah, I'm interested to see where they go, because I think they actually have so many different avenues that they can approach with this AD carry spot. I think, especially if it ends up being Ezreal, it really does open up options for Ultra Prime to feel comfortable playing for mid-game fights. It does look like it is going to be Ezreal. I imagine this is going to be something more engage-oriented. I do think you need a little bit of beef. Yeah, you need something here. The Leona is still on the table. That's definitely the first one that comes to mind if you want to play around Ezreal Leona. But there are other options. Perhaps if you want to go for something more playmaking-oriented, like a Rakan would theoretically be available, but I think when you're it could be more defensive, and Braum would be that. You're definitely kind of taking your foot off the gas in the bot lane 2v2 with that, and with Corki in the mid lane, I think that could theoretically get you a little bit slower, but it's really just how you play it, and I think it really matters who the AD carry ends up being.
Yeah, I'm very curious if they're going to want to go with something a little bit more 2v2 dominant there, or if they want to go with something a little bit more sat back. Because one thing that LNG absolutely has going for them right now is all their poke coming through for them. It is the Kai'Sa, so a little bit more dive heavy there.
Yeah, I really like this draft from Ultra Prime. I think they're in a really good spot to be able to scale this game out. I think both team comps here are clearly aiming to get to the back half of the game. They do not want to try and, risk things early. Corki Lilia definitely isn't the duo, and Lee Sin can help with that, but when you're playing around Kai'Sa and Ryze and Rumble, you're certainly not scared about going late in a draft like this. I am very concerned about the lack of proactivity, though, on the side of LNG. I just don't really know if they have the tools needed in order to force a lot of situations in the early game, and I think a lot of tempo could go over to the side of Ultra Prime because of that.
Yeah, I think the Lilia is going to have a big say on how this early game goes, especially the pathing, but especially the opportunities given. and you're giving that opportunity to a guy who's just stepping in for the first time for LNG in Xiaofeng, and that's a lot of weight on the shoulders. And that's a lot of weight from the org on a guy here, putting a ton of resources for game number 1 of this best of 3 Fearless between them. We said it so many times, but these series, they matter so much for both these teams. More so for LNG, as falling 0-3 in a 5-series stretch would be dooming, it feels, for them moving forward. Again, bottom 2 in Nirvana are eliminated for the rest of the year if they do end up finishing their season there. But we're going into game number 1 of this Nirvana clash. It should be a ton of fun. Should be a lot of action, a lot of hype. Ultra Prime trying to stave off of that 1-1 start and go 2-0 to join the upper echelon of Nirvana. And LNG just trying to figure out what worked for them. They've got in a couple changes into the roster. They've brought in LP back again. They brought in Xiaofeng. And now we get into game number 1. A couple gyos, you know.
Yeah, you know. Definitely more than I was expecting for these two teams in the state they're in, but I'm excited to see this. Again, I agree with you. Early pressure, mid-game pressure is so important for both of these comps. I think it really is up to the junglers. I'm glad we highlighted them because the draft really has reinforced that. It's a Junhao versus Xiaofeng matchup here in terms of who's going to be able to get a lot of that advantage, especially in the mid-game. I think Lee Sin set up in a nice spot, but side lane pressure is also very important to highlight here. Obviously, making sure that the Kai'Sa is in a good enough spot to scale is very crucial for Ultra Prime to have success in this comp because you need her damage in the late game. You know, going up against a Corki and a Gwen, there's definitely an avenue still here for a lot of LNG pressure in the back half of the game, even if it might be a bit more difficult to get there. It's really about making sure that your main damage dealers are in a good spot and you can establish that through the tempo that will likely be in the mid lane, but we see some pretty standard starts here from the junglers.
Yeah, it's going to be opposite side starts, so we'll see where they exactly want to focus. There's obviously some room for moving around in terms of that mid lane focus, level 3 ganks, things along those lines. But I do expect the first pathing to be pretty even for them in terms of not wanting too much action. Xiaofeng really wants to get to a place where he can speed clear through and then be proactive into the lanes. So definitely looking for after that first one. I will say there is something about this bot lane. I know we were talking about maybe offsetting and not going exactly for that 2v2, but the early phase, Zhuo, like, is the hated centerpiece for Xiaoxia. Like, it is so hard to play Alistar into the Braum early.
Yeah, this becomes a very difficult matchup for a couple levels. You just got to be able to survive, though. The moment you start getting to those level 4, level 5 exchanges, things become a lot easier for the Alistar, and I would expect that to continue, but level 2's hit early here by LNG. I need to see this LNG bot lane generate a lead down in the bot lane. If this Ezreal, you know, we already see it obviously starting to generate in terms of a CS lead, but if you're not in a great position as LP, it's going to be very difficult to fight out in the mid game with those rotations. You should have a bit of shove, but again, if Lee Sin wants to pay any attention here after making that full clear and potentially doing something topside, I think that's going to be in the favor of Ultra Prime. Interested to see how the top lane 1v1 ends up going, though, because I also do think that dictates the pathing and the decisions for these junglers early.
Yeah, we've seen Rumble even be able to get out to early advantages as well. A lot of the time, though, we do see influence from jungle really leaning out to what that top lane ends up being. We do have that kind of exhaust plus TP setup for Zika this time around to try to delay some of that damage that's going to be coming through with the burst setup. But I'm very curious how without that flash, without that preemptive setup they can do. We get a nice 2v2 in the bot side, though. There's that Braum difference coming through to get some damage back onto Xiaoxia. Another concussive blows connects there onto Wako. And a big, heavy trading in the 2v2 bot.
That's a great trade for LNG. That's exactly what they need to do in this situation where you want to try and trade all of this early pressure that you've generated for that advantage. But Junhao now on the top side with Zika.
They've got a massive wave here. Look at that thing. It's like a tsunami. Zika going to dodge out of the sonic wave there, and he might even escape without even taking anything. Junhao and Jiang take more damage than Zika did.
It's just disastrously misplayed by Ultra Prime. That should have been a pretty free dive. That wave was absolutely ginormous, and unfortunately, Junhao not landing any abilities in that exchange. That'll do it. That'll dissuade the dive.
That'll do it.
You know, I like the idea. You do obviously get something out of Zika there, which is not only the pressure, but the ability to try and fight in this lane. Jung should still have more pressure moving forward. We'll see. We actually see a lot of pathing towards the top side. We could see some potential action here.
I'm very curious because that's super early comparatively when the grubs are going to spawn. That's when you typically see this kind of movement from teams. It is going to be a minute and a half before the grubs even spawn. Dragon's going to be up about 20 seconds on the bot side of the map. We'll see if Ultra Prime sniff out what's going on now that they're on vision and maybe lean over towards that a little bit. But Zhuo and Xiaofeng getting active on the map. Not maybe the duo you'd see in the comic books, but Braum and Lilia threatening nonetheless.
Yeah, this is securing objectives here for Xiaofeng. You want to make sure that that Lilia is as safe as possible, but what I'm looking for in the next minute is I want to see if this pressure continues to really be applied to the top side of the map. We've seen LPL teams in particular really prioritize those grubs and not worry too much about early dragons, but now we're actually seeing Xiaofeng move his way down here to the Raptors. We'll see if he wants to walk into a potential dragon pit. It should just be gone in favor of Ultra Prime here. But I like this for Ultra Prime quite a bit. I like the dragon stacking starting very early. We already talked about how I think they scale really well into the late game, playing around a potential Kai'Sa win condition with the Rumble ult to kind of supplement that. And I think the dragons, you know, really play into that idea a little bit more. But it's all going to be up to how much you want to put into those grubs.
You know, I'm going to hold back my tongue a little bit, but LNG's plan didn't really lean out too much. I mean, they do already have pressure up in topside. But the thing is, if you leave that side of the map, I mean, it was obviously very easy for Ultra Prime to take that first dragon and still be on the top side of the map to contest. It doesn't seem like they want to go ahead and do that, but they did also bring up Wako and Xiaoxia. They are going to initiate the back from Junhao, so it will just be that trade. And honestly, I feel like LNG definitely got away with something here, but leaning into that kind of scaling condition for Ultra Prime and not wanting to force tempo.
Yeah, I think you're a little bit more scared if you're Ultra Prime to overextend in this spot because you are worried a bit about what the Kai'Sa is going to be able to do in comparison to the Ezreal in this spot. And you hit one bad positioning, you know, situation around a Lilia, and a lot of the early lead that you've, you know, kind of generated, or at least some early pressure that you've generated, maybe not the lead in terms of gold, but that pressure you've generated is just gone, and that advantage you generated in bot lane or around Dragon is just gone. So I understand not wanting to make a critical error there, but those three grubs going over to LNG, I think, are very important towards how this mid-game is going to end up going. Obviously, in 3.5 minutes, you're going to need to fight over that, and that becomes a little bit more manageable for Ultra Prime, but I do think you need to start seeing Junhao and Saber start to link up now that we've gotten closer to these level 6s.
And level 6 is going to enable a lot between these two team compositions as well. More so, I feel like, for Ultra Prime for sure, because they can start using Saber out of that mid lane with the Realm Warp and see where they can get action going for themselves. But we are going to go back to the normal setup, the norm, if you will, onto the map with both bot lanes going back towards bot. And that next grub spawn will be very important for Ultra Prime to try to contest over, but it's really about what these teams want to do in the in-between time. And so far, Xiaofeng, he's sticking to the track record. He's sticking to the game plan. Lilia needs to farm. He's got a big CS difference over Junhao already.
Yeah, this is definitely going to play into your favor if the Lee Sin is not going to be crazy aggressive on the map, constantly looking for plays. Lilia is just going to have more tempo if you're going to leave her to her own devices and not force her hand in terms of trying to react to plays around the map. I wanted to see Junhao be more aggressive in terms of playing this out early in the game, but we see a nice trade in the mid lane here. You know, Saber doesn't want to take too many of these. I think you want to try and stay as high health as possible to allow you the opportunity to move around, but it's definitely been a less active early game than I was anticipating, even with two scaling comps, if only just because I think you kind of needed to do something if you were the Lee Sin. Things aren't obviously over just yet, but this is already a 1k gold lead in favor of LNG, and I think things are definitely starting to get more interesting for them moving forward.
I'll be getting the good old Rod of Ages from Saber. Go with that early tankiness, at least, or not early tankiness, stacking tankiness. So right into the win condition that we were talking about. But now I do wonder if the question of that next objective does get a little bit more murky, because, I mean, 2 dragons for Ultra Prime would be absolutely huge. But the grubs definitely gain importance not giving over grub again to LNG, especially with the poke comp, the siege comp that they have. It can be very difficult. So you already see that some preemptive vision being played towards up there by Ultra Prime, but the back ahead of the spawn, very important as they are going to be readapting the map.
Yeah, I think one thing to note for a potential grub fight or even a dragon fight, LNG are very sneakily good at finding pick opportunities with this comp. You have plenty of ways to catch someone out if they're just slightly overextended. That might be the fear here for Junhao and Saber pushing a little bit too far forward, is that if you are caught in a situation like this, it could be really disastrous, and there are plenty of options, but I totally agree. Ultra Prime's objective here should absolutely be the dragon spawning in 1 minute. You don't want to give over void grubs, but there are plenty of ways to stall. I think the main objective for Ultra Prime would be to get to that 3rd or 4th Drake, you know, at 3 dragons and really try and play through that. I'm interested to see if LNG on that hand want to try and contest that, or if they're going to be comfortable just taking a 5v3 potentially near these grubs while the dragon gets taken on the other side. But that Lilia advantage really does create kind of an awkward situation for Ultra Prime that I'm not sure how they're going to be able to respond to here.
And now ahead of that, a little bit of confusion on the map with some different placements from people, but it is going to be that reset from Xiaofeng as well to get back out. There's some pings down towards mid lane and a lot of vision for LNG around that grub pit here. It is looking like, though, that Ultra Prime might just be willing to go with that seceding of that side of the map. So very, very curious what kind of decision LNG want to go with, as they aren't necessarily fully on about starting it up outright.
Yeah, LNG very slow on the trigger here. It feels like they should absolutely be on grubs already, and obviously they're making their way there, but the longer they wait, the more dangerous this play becomes. It doesn't look like Ultra Prime really want to worry about it too much. This is a risky trade for Ultra Prime. You know, getting those 2 dragons, as I said, is very relevant. It's important. Like, you want those drakes, but looks like they're actually going to peel off and make their way down. This is a very shocking decision, but we could actually see a fight here.
Okay, Junhao will get spotted out doing the dragon. They took one of the grubs, so just trying to deny Ultra Prime from getting 3, but now they're getting engaged. Now Ultra Prime is fully pincered in the mid lane. Lilting Lullaby coming out for Xiaofeng, instantly flashed out by Saber. Here comes the TP from Jiang. Big equalizer, but they've already gotten first blood. LNG for Xiaofeng's first game with them gets the first kill, and the Lilia is off to the races.
Yeah, and a very interesting play turns out to really work for LNG. They pull off of the grubs in a situation where it feels like they are just getting 6 for free. Almost every other team would take that trade happily, but I think they understand that, you know, credit to what we said earlier, there's a lot of pick potential in this draft, and if you can get on a lot of these targets, it could be scary. Junhao no vision on the dragon here. He could be walking into a trap.
Is he going to try to steal it?
He is looking.
4 people.
He is
TP
looking.
coming in. Ultra, what is happening? Junhao just goes in before the TP's even clear. Wako goes to try to get the kill on LP. LP dies to the dragon of all things. If this isn't the epitome of group Nirvana, I don't know what is, baby. As the 2 kills come through in the middle of the portal, their bodies aren't even on the rift. They have been lost in the dimension of death.
What could Ultra Prime possibly be thinking in this engage? Junhao, to his credit, walks in. They have no vision. I think at the beginning of that exchange, you could possibly say he didn't know that there were all 5 members of LNG there, but the moment he gets vision, he decides that's the time to go in. He immediately gets bursted down. Wako ults in. It really feels like they're committing. It doesn't work. This is disastrous for Ultra Prime. That is a game-losing potential decision. They are so far behind now, and as we see in this engage, Junhao just playing as if his life means very little. He goes in and immediately gets CC'd up. The damage comes down. You can't underestimate that Gwen in a fight like this, and that goes for the rest of this as well.
You know, LNG, take what they got. And honestly, that's pretty huge, because now, as we're going to go back into the fact that they die, their bodies are literally off the rift. Like, that is wild. I've never seen that before, and that is a one-way portal to hell that Saber just put for his team. But now you're, like, down almost 5,000, 4,000 gold, like 13 and a half minutes in. This is tough, but this is Group Nirvana. Any lead is possible to be thrown.
No lead is safe. I think an important stat to point out here. LNG,
snatched out of the jaws of victory.
Yes, LNG have a 0% win rate this split when they are winning at 15 minutes. So
That's
that is something to at least keep in mind. But Xiaofeng, we highlighted that the new addition was likely going to be very important. Xiaoxia looking for something there, but can't find it. We highlighted that Xiaofeng was going to be important. Boy, is he important towards how this team operates throughout the rest of this game. If this Lilia is left unchecked in a lot of these fights, we were talking about the damage of Kaisa and Rumble coming through. You've now got a Gwen and a Lilia to worry about moving forward. That's going to be terrifying in front of Axe, and that's not even accounting for the fact that Zika can do whatever he wants right now in a side lane with this much gold.
And when you're planning out a draft and you see that you don't really have any forms of engage and you draft the Braum, you're like, okay, that's our only engage. You're not accounting for the fact that Xiaofeng just pops off and is a central piece to the setup here. And I think it's really nice to have seen them kind of build this comp around making him comfortable and bringing out that Lilia to keep that pace of play in his pocket, because now he's up 20 CS. And unfortunately for Junhao, it does not get any easier to slow down this Lilia as she gets more items.
Yeah, this definitely does not get easier for Ultra Prime. I talked about how they scale really well. LNG also scales really well. My concern in draft was, again, not only just the lack of engage, but really the lack of consistent damage outside of potentially Corki in a lot of these fights, or Gwen, obviously, if she gets very far ahead. All of those things have come to fruition for LNG. This Lilia is in an incredible spot. Gwen is in an incredible spot. You're looking at 1.5K gold leads individually for every member of LNG, and now they just get whatever they want on the map. I'm looking out at objectives. You got Rift Herald spawning in 30 seconds. I have a hard time believing that that's going to be even contestable if you're Ultra Prime, especially with Junhao on the bot side. He's basically giving this up. Your one win condition that you wanted to go for early of stacking those dragons has become much more difficult after that second dragon fight. It just feels like a lot of the avenues that Ultra Prime were looking for have kind of been denied, and mostly by their own play here.
Yeah, now ballooning to almost 6,000 gold in the deficit is Ultra Prime, and 10 seconds or less for this Rift Herald spawn. We will see Xiaofeng go redeploy onto the bot side of the map, so Rift Herald will have to wait for a little while. There's a ton of vision being played towards on this top side by LNG, really giving them a lot of info. Oh my god, that's dirty! A lot of info on where Ultra Prime is, and now you can see that deficit. It was like it was 10, then it was like 20, now it's like 30 CS over Junhao for Xiaofeng.
Yeah, and we didn't even talk about Haichao. Haichao's at 173 CS with 3 assists at 16 minutes into the game. You want damage. That Corki's going to have damage. It's going to be a problem. Rift Herald, obviously, not contestable. I'm more so interested in Dragon coming up in 40 seconds to see if Ultra Prime want to try and take one last gambit to start stacking those, and if LNG wants to, risk a fight there, risk a potential close quarters exchange. But I just have such a hard time believing that Ultra Prime are allowed to do any of this on the map, and that Xiaofeng isn't just going to be continuously walking around. You've got to start utilizing Saber's ultimate. I think if you're not looking for Rise picks, it's going to be very difficult to come back into the game, and it looks like they could potentially be doing that here.
See if maybe they want to try to pick out a little straggler. Oh, there's a little puppy. Oh, they want the puppy. Oh, the flash out. Haichao walks away cool, calm, and collected. Meanwhile, LNG were pushing in mid lane, going to get the Rift Herald spawn there and take down the outer tower. So play is forfeit for Ultra Prime there. And now they're just going to move Haichao to mid lane. Look at the swarm. This is what happens when you give over 6 grubs for free.
It's just so impossible to make a play for them. They want to try and get one of those picks we were talking about with Rise, but to do so, they have to sacrifice almost the entirety of their mid lane just to open up the map to even attempt to make something. And if you don't get anything out of that play, it becomes even scarier. Obviously, Flash on Haichao is a good summoner to be able to grab, but you have so much up still, and we talked about Dragon spawning. Ultra Prime can't even get in the area. They have to give over every objective time after time after time, and we watched this gold lead. It went from 1K to 3K, and it's just ballooned out of control. And even with plays potentially being made elsewhere on the map, this is a free bot lane tier 2. There's nothing that Ultra Prime can do. It's just everywhere on the map that's crumbling. Here's mid lane tier 2 for your troubles. There's just nowhere to play for right now. Nowhere feels safe, and that's because of the gold lead everywhere on the map for LNG.
Let's go, Saber. He's gonna get the bounty. Let's go, man. You're gonna do it. You're gonna take down that turret. You're doing so good. Meanwhile, another dragon's gonna go the way of LNG. They'll balloon that one up to 2 for themselves. And yeah, I'll just say I think Ultra Prime are gonna look back at that first swap-a-rooney of the Grubs v Dragon fight at Dragon number 2 and probably want that one back a million times out of a million times.
Yeah, I'm sure VOD review for that is going to be a little bit heated. I would imagine that's not going to be a very fun meeting to be a part of. But it's obviously an unfortunate play. I think they were already in a tough spot even before that. But looking forward, like, what do you do here? I think the only real answer is to hope and pray that Wako can end up getting online, but a pick here.
Okay, maybe it's enough. Glacial Fissure has been used. LP trying to back up Zhuo, but it is not going to be enough. Now it is. TP coming in.
Here.
Oh, Xiaofeng trying to come in now. Gets almost all the health from Wako. Young has to run away now. Oh, all 5 are there. Zika was looking for it. Wants to go with the needlework. Xiaofeng tries to go for the big play. Gets the 2, but they have already escaped with the Realm Warp this time. It is not going to be one that ends up in their death. And Ultra Prime make it out, but they have lost all pressure on this top side of the map.
Oh, and this play might not be over. They're looking for a death push here.
Oh, the swirl seed, man. It does so much damage. Zika just snipping away at Junhao's health. Haichao's coming to back him up, and Ultra Prime realize they have no dog in this fight.
But overall, that's a 1 for 0 for Ultra Prime. That's certainly not a bad exchange considering everything. Now, if you want to be a bit more pessimistic, the kill going on to Alistair, not very ideal. Definitely not the
fine.
best
We don't look
situation.
at that. We don't worry about it. A kill's a kill, baby. Let's go.
A kill is a kill, and so you'll take anything you can get, but those are the kinds of plays you have to be willing to try to make. You've got to be pulling these 1 for 0s as much as possible because there's no real way you can win an even team fight from this point onwards in the game as long as, you know, LNG are trying. And so it's nice to see that proactivity is still there. We'll see if Junhao want to continue to try here, but he could overstep. It's just going to complete the back.
Complete the back, yeah.
That is definitely the right move in this instance, so glad to see him make that decision. But again, if you're Ultra Prime and you want to get back into the game, you got to find these picks. But as much as we can talk about finding one, it's got to be more than just one. You got to find multiple of these throughout the rest of this game. And with Otacon up and the entire bot side completely controlled here by LNG, it just gets harder and harder.
And we're on 2 items for almost everybody. Which is just so hard to fight up against when you are that scaling comp, when you yourself are waiting for items as well. Zika has his Riftmaker and his Nashers. He might be looking for a 1v2, and they might not be able to say anything about it. He's got his Needlework already popped, so he's going to need to utilize that to try to get some health back here. He's just going to walk away from Saber and Junhao in the 1v2, but him being up there and Junhao being seen on vision means Otacon is just a freebie for LNG. Take it off the shelf.
Yeah, it's definitely the decision by Ultra Prime that, you know what, maybe not worth risking everybody's lives to try and contest this Otacon here, and I think that's the right play. Zika is such a difficult target to lock down. That's kind of a Hail Mary play that you go for just because you need to do something on the map. You need to hope and pray that he makes some sort of mistake, but no mistake made there. Zika's too good of a player to make that. We see some pings coming down onto the top side, but once again, you're just seeing this game spiral out of control so quickly, and this is what happens when you give a comp that has this much damage so much gold in the early game. And I think when you're looking at what you can potentially do moving into a game number 2, and not saying that Ultra Prime should be looking at game 2, but you know what you can think is just you gotta make sure that if you're gonna draft something like Lee Sin, you gotta be more proactive. We talked about it in the early game. It just didn't really happen, but
I like the first dragon. The first dragon was great.
Yeah. Yes, I completely agree. I think getting those dragons stacked was a huge game plan for this team, and they didn't have it, but now they're just sieging down topside, and I have a hard time believing Ultra Prime's going to be able to stop them.
Yeah, I mean, this comp is literally built for siege. You have Ezreal and Corki. There's not much you can do under turret, and you have the Lilting Lullaby always ready to go if Xiaofeng hits a good swirl seed. LP was mid lane trying to get this inhib turret. They've got 2 lanes of pressure right now. They're fumbling it just a little slowly, but it will just be this progressive move to this top lane, tier 2. These 6 scrubs, they can burn it down pretty heavily. Saber able to clear that wave and buy some more time for Ultra Prime. But it feels like fish in a barrel at this point. Ultra Prime need to make something happen or get out of this very sticky situation.
Yeah, they definitely feel stuck here at this turret. I honestly don't know if they can even engage here. I think even a miracle engage might not go their way with the amount of damage, but we could see LNG look to be really aggressive here. Yeah, potentially try and dive in. It's not working. They don't have the damage to be able to do anything here. And all this time, Zika's just pushing in the mid wave, and we're going to see a fight here.
Oh my God, man. All right, this one's done. Pack it up. Ultra Prime, they're going to try to get the kill on mid lane, but that is just the Atacon GA. And now LNG are running under the Nexus Towers to get more kills for Xiaofeng, more kills for LP, and more kills on the Ultra Prime. Realm Warp, is it going to save them? It does, but they lose the inhib turret and the inhib because of that. LNG should just back away after this one, but the damage is done.
Yeah, this game is very out of hand for Ultra Prime from this point
gold.
onwards. I just, Wako disappeared. He was in front of my eyes and then he wasn't anymore with one click of the R button from LP on the other side. It's just so difficult to play this out from this point, and this is without Baron. Baron spawning in 45 seconds. LNG, going to be able to get their resets in before that. If we thought the push was bad before, I'm interested to see what happens after, but we get another look at this fight, and it's just so much damage coming down on Wako so quickly. Loses his entire health bar to an Ezreal Q and then a Corki Rocket. He gets hit by the knockup, and again, a beautiful ult coming in from LP. But I can't imagine a world where Ultra Prime can even survive in their own base at this point.
Yeah, LP, a welcomed addition a couple weeks ago to this LNG roster, but obviously, having a couple of those games under his belt now, maybe feel a little bit more confident with this team. But it is Ultra Prime still trying to get something on the map, and that's going to be their red buff. Congratulations, fellas. But it is going to be almost 3 items for LNG. And this is a great start for the new iteration of LNG. Like, I know there was some really bad decisions from Ultra Prime, and that's definitely led to this, but you have to be able to execute on those bad decisions. And LNG, they look like a different team.
They have done fantastic with the lead that they were given. A lot of teams in Group Nirvana don't really know how to cleanly play from ahead. We talked about it in the intro to this series, where really the difference between the good teams and the bad teams in Group Nirvana has been their comfort in being able to play from a lead and play their own play style. LNG has done a fantastic job of understanding exactly how to push this lead once they got it. They didn't have to do it through kills. They could do it through a ton of map pressure, and they're doing that now with the start of the Baron. I cannot imagine that this is contestable, but maybe a Miracle Steal could be on the horizon. Doesn't even look like that's going to be an option here. Haichao, LP, they're just going to fully poke them out.
Okay, maybe.
Yeah.
A lilting lullaby on the 2. They don't even want to follow it up. It's just going to be in this choke point here. The Baron already going down. Wako has found the backline, gets Zhuo, but now Zika with the rest of the team coming over the wall. It's going to be a 3-man Realm Warp to get the rest of Ultra Prime out of there. But look at Xiaofeng flashing forward here to try to be a little flashy himself. Going to get the wound and pound onto him and get a double kill for Haichao too. Xiaofeng has been a monster this game, and it's nice to see him back in form since his time on OMG.
We wanted to see confidence. We wanted to see aggression. We wanted to see Xiaofeng come into this role and be the player that we know he can be, and he has done exactly that here in game number 1. As LNG sieges down the base here, we can see the fruits of their labor, and at least at the start of this series, we are seeing a great new version of them.
Game number 1 to LNG. Another win to the book. And it's not a series win, but it's on the right trajectory. And they look damn good doing it. Again, over a 10,000 gold lead for the team. And we got to see Xiaofeng's influence often and early in that one.
Yeah, you're going to need to address that if you are Ultra Prime going into game number 2. You cannot allow this early lead to spiral out of control in the way that it did. Obviously, give a lot of credit to LNG. They did a fantastic job of understanding their comp's win conditions, realizing that if the top side of this map, if Gwen, if Lilia can really start generating some gold, it's pretty hard to deal with them if you just have an Alistar on the other side of this and if the Lee Sin can be taken out of the game. So credit to LNG, but if I'm Ultra Prime, my first goal going into the next game is we need to make sure that Junhao is on something that can either scale really well or can be proactive in the early game, and he's going to feel comfortable on it because it just never really felt like he was in this one.
Yep, exactly that. That is it for game number 1, though. But before we go, we got to say we're extremely grateful to our Coffee and YouTube subscribers. Thank you so much. Being able to have that helps level up the show on so many ways. A lot of payments go initially to paying production staff to paying the broadcast talent, but also paying for awesome upgrade packages just like you see that we've had here in split number 2. It's been a lot of fun to see. So please go subscribe to our coffee. It's linked in chat as well. Go subscribe to YouTube. You can unlock perks like early access to content and even ask interview questions for our interviews with players. Please, please, please go subscribe. It helps so much. Thank you all. And that means we're going to go ahead and send it to a break.